TV, mag-aral ng maigi to get the lessons easily. It's tangkop, tangkop, tangkop time. We learn all things, it's very fine, masaya. Tutok na. It's tangkop, tangkop, tangkop time. We learn all things, it's very fine, masaya. Tutok na. Let's come and learn together, supporting one another. We love, we care, we share. It's tangkop, tangkop, tangkop time. We learn all things, it's very fine, masaya. Tutok na. It's tangkop, tangkop, tangkop time. We learn all things, it's very fine, masaya. Tutok na. It's tangkop, tangkop, tangkop time. We learn all things, it's very fine, masaya. Tutok na. It's tangkop, tangkop, tangkop time. We learn all things, it's very fine, masaya. Tutok na. It's tangkop, tangkop, tangkop time. We learn all things, it's very fine, masaya. Tutok na. Tangkop, tangkop time.
The Department of Education, Division of Tangub City, in partnership with the local government unit of Tangub, presents Ang Tangkub, Transforming Advancement in the New Normal, guiding K-12 learners under broadcast media and instructional program crafted in response to the need of making education possible and accessible to students at the comfort of their homes. It covers the most essential competencies, thematically layered in drama plays, which were originally written, directed, and performed by teachers to see to it that education is securely provided. This is Ang Tangkub.
Tayo na.
Good afternoon to our senior high school students who are watching today via our Facebook Live at Dapat Tayo Tanggub and Astral Academy Cyber School. I am Mary Chris Malalis from Bintana Integrated School.
And I am teacher Lady May Lumayot from Malura Integrated School, and we are your teacher facilitators for today.
So how are you for this afternoon,
I'm
ma'am?
very fine, Ma'am Mary Chris. How about you?
Well, I'm fine as well.
Wow.
But yeah, laban gihapon.
Yes,
ako.
it's a good day to learn, and it's the first week for the second semester for our senior high school learners. Alright, so
Yes.
let's kickstart our first week of this SEM. So we have the general physics and the general biology.
So let us start first now with our general physics 2. With learning competencies, describe using a diagram using charging by rubbing and charging by induction, and calculate the net electric force on a point charge exerted by a system of point charges. Okay, so let's start now, ma'am.
Yes.
So have you experienced students combing your hair? Then after a point in time, your hair will get attracted to your comb? Have you
Yes.
experienced that one, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am. When I was still in high school, nag-experiment mi ana ano din. Very amazed kay me what's the reason behind that scenario.
Yes, that is right. So it has something to do with the concept static electricity, ma'am. So when we talk about static electricity, ma'am May,
Yes, so static electricity results from an imbalance between negative and positive charges in objects.
so when we say imbalance in a positive and negative charges, it means to say, ma'am, no, nga naaday na wala o naaday na puno.
Yes.
So when we talk about electricity, there is one condition for us to consider that there is an electricity. It has something to do with the movement of electrons.
Yes.
So if we try to recall on the structure of an atom, ma'am May, so I have here a diagram, no, of the structure of an atom.
Okay.
So we have here, recall that the atom is the smallest unit of matter, and it is composed of 3 subatomic particles, the electron, proton, and neutron. So inside the nucleus are the 2 subatomic particles, which are the neutron and proton. So neutron is a neutrally charged particle, proton is a positively charged particle, and electron is a negatively charged particle. So what's special about electron, ma'am May, no, is that it is freely moving. It means to say that because it's not contained inside the nucleus of an atom, it can transfer from one atom to another. So that is why if there is a transfer of electron, then there is electricity.
Yes.
So we have the law of conservation of charges, ma'am May, no?
Alright, so when we say law of conservation of charge, charge is neither created nor destroyed. It can only be transferred from one system to another.
So, under a certain condition, di ay, ma'am May, so electron or this subatomic or this negatively charged particle cannot be destroyed or created. Rather, it can be transferred from one atom to another. And when there is a transfer of the electron, then the atom will become charged.
Yes.
So that is why we have this term charging. So an atom can be positively or negatively charged. So when we say positively charged, an atom has a greater number of proton. When we say negatively charged, an object has more negative or has more electrons in the atom.
Yes.
So ma'am May, we have different types of charging, no?
Alright, so we have the charging by rubbing or friction, charging by conduction, and charging by induction.
Okay, so let us know them one by one. When we talk about charging by friction, ma'am May, what is it all about?
So when we say charging by friction, it's the transfer of electrons from one uncharged object to another by rubbing 2 objects together.
Okay, so just like what you have seen now on your screen, the neutral rug and the neutral PVC pipe. So when we talk about charging by rubbing, it has something to do with rubbing the materials.
Yes.
So have you experienced rubbing both hands, ma'am May?
Yes.
So if we rub our hands, both of our hands, at a certain point in time, we will feel heat.
Yes, especially
Okay.
if kanang sa other country no nga, mo
Oh,
na lang use
magugnaw
nga,
kayo.
yes,
Oh.
ma-exert
So-
sila heat.
When we do rub our hands there, ma'am May, the electrons in the atom will get excited.
Yes.
So, just like what you can see in the screen right now, the rug and the PVC pipe, similar with our hair and the
comb.
comb. So, those are 2 materials having different ability to attract electrons. So, when there is a presence of heat, ma'am May, it means to say that there is heat is a form of energy.
Yes.
So when we talk about energy, it is the ability to do work. And when there is work, of course, there is force or the
Yes.
presence of force. So in a neutral atom, so if there is a presence of heat, then if there is an external force that will cause the electron to get excited. So if ma-excite na gali ang electrons, then it has the tendency to transfer
Yes.
from one atom to another. And the ability to transfer, the ability of the electron to transfer from one atom to another depends on the electron affinity. That is why we have the triboelectric series, as shown on your screen right now. We have the different list of the materials which has the ability to lose electrons. So, if the material loses electrons, that it becomes positively charged. Kay nakulangan naman iyang electrons, so nanginubra na ang proton sa ayang atom.
Yes.
And we also have here the some materials from silk to Teflon, it gains electrons. So, it has the tendency to attract electrons, meaning to say it has higher electron affinity. So, if it gains electron, then it will have a more or a greater number of electrons in its atom, making it negatively charged. Now, going back to our example, the hair and the polyethylene, which is the plastic comb. So, if we rub hair and the comb, then there is the presence or the production of heat. Kay friction man no, kay
Yes.
rub man nato ang hair sa ato ang sa comb. So, in that particular sense, there is the presence of external force. Since hair has lower electron affinity than the polyethylene or the plastic, then the plastic will tend to attract electrons coming from the hair. So, since nawadaan naman og electron sa hair, then the hair will become negatively charged. And since the polyethylene or the plastic comb will attract or gains electron, then it becomes negatively charged. So that is the process of charging by rubbing. We also have another type of charging, which is
Charging by conduction. So in this type, two objects will come into actual physical contact with each other.
So when we say conduction, it has something to do with the physical contact. So say for example, if we have here two conductors, because we have the term conduction mameno, so it has something to do with the material having the ability to conduct,
Yes.
or allowing the electrons to pass or to flow. So if we have here a neutral metal ball, so when we say neutral, they have equal number of proton and electron. And we also have here a negatively charged rod. Now if we touch the negatively charged rod to this metal rod or to this neutral rod, then the negative or the excess electrons from this rod will transfer to this metal rod.
Yes.
So what will happen, Ma'am May, is that the metal rod will become negatively charged.
So from neutral to negatively charged.
So meaning to say, na physical contact, that is
Yes.
charging by
Conduction.
Then, Ma'am May, we also have the
Charging by induction. So
Yes.
induction charging is a method used to charge an object without actually touching the object to any other charged object.
So that is opposite to conduction, Ma'am May, no? Because
Yes.
in conduction, it involves physical contact. On the
Yes.
other hand, in induction, walay physical contact. Like for example, we have here two metal balls, which are initially neutral. Then let us say for example, in letter B, a positively charged rod is brought closer. Closer lang siya, no? Pero wala siya hikap or touch. So it is brought closer to this side of the metal rod. So what will happen is that, because we have this rule, di ba, Ma'am May, that negative opposite charges attract. So, kay na may excess positive charge si rod, then it will induce or it will pull the negative charges. That is why in this side of the metal ball, it has negative charges, while on this other side, nabili na ang positive charges. So what will happen in this letter C is that if we try to separate the two balls, so the second or the letter B will become positively charged, and the first metal ball will still be negatively charged. Now if we will remove the positively charged rod. Kaya wala man nato siya
Physical
contact, no?
contact.
So there's no physical contact. In other words, walay flow of electrons.
Yes.
It's just happen nga na ay polarization. Meaning to say, nagbulag si negative o si positive. So what will happen if we remove this positively charged rod is that both rods will be charged na negatively and positively. So that those are the three types of charging. No, we have charging by rubbing. We also
Charging by conduction and
And-
charging by induction.
Okay. So the attraction or the interaction of the charges, Ma'am May, no, has something to do with the law of electrostatics. So what is law of electrostatics?
So it states, or the law of electrostatics states that like charges repel and unlike charges attract.
So as what you can see in your screen right now, no, when we say like charges repel, if we have both positive charges, then the positive will push the positive charge away. Kaya dili mo sila mag-attract because they
Yes.
both have the same charges. If we have two negative charges, then they will repel, magbulag sila
Yes.
Mami. So, on the other hand, if we have two opposite charges, the positive and negative, then they will attract.
Yes.
So, meaning to say,
Opposite
attract. So, ma-apply ba nato na siya sa real life, Mami?
Opposite attract.
Depende, no? Depende
Yes.
po sa preference sa tao.
Wow.
Yes. And aside from the similarity or the difference of the charges, the distance as well has something to do or affects the strength of the force between the charges. So, if both charges or similar charges are near to each other, then they will experience a strong repulsion.
Yes.
If dool. If both similar charges are far from each other, then there is a weaker
Attraction.
repulsion.
Yes.
Repulsion siya mamay kay similar charge man.
Okay.
However, if two unlike charges, positive and negative, are near from each other, then they will experience a strong attraction. However, if two unlike charges, positive and negative, are far from each other, then there is a weaker attraction. Now we have here an equation to explain that law of electrostatic.
Okay.
We have here the Coulomb's law. So what is Coulomb's law?
So the Coulomb's law gives the electric force between 2-point charges.
Okay, so if there is an interaction of both charges, then there is the presence of force. Kaya naamay nagtulod, napoy nagbira.
Yes.
So the push or pull of an object is actually force.
Force.
So force as defined by Coulomb's law is equal to K times Q1, Q2 divided by R, wherein K is defined as the Coulomb's constant, which is equal to 9 times 10 to the power of 9 Newton times meter squared per Coulomb squared. Q1 is the point charge 1, Q2 is point charge 2, and R is the distance between two charges. So, Ma'am May, it states here that there is an inverse square law. So, what do we mean by that? If there is a greater distance, because distance is inversely proportional with force, so if there is greater distance between two charges, then there is a lesser amount of force. If there is, or if the two charges are near from each other, then there is a greater amount of electrical force. Okay, so that certain equation can be applied in problems.
Alright,
Okay, so may basin maglibo ka mga estudyante no nga asa man siya nung nagstorya man sila charges. We're actually viewing it in a microscopic level na no,
yes.
because again the electrically charged particles are the subatomic particle of atom.
Yes.
And atom is the smallest unit of matter. So meaning to say, if we can
Pinakagamay.
if we can see this marker, we can no longer see an atom. Kay
Yes.
this marker is made up of billions of atoms.
Yes, truly
Oo.
right.
Maunang, we are just talking here in a microscopic level. Yes, so for example, Ma'am May, no,
Yes, so the first example, find the magnitude of the force between two charges.
Okay, so if we have here 2-point charges, Q1 is equal to positive 5 microcoulomb. Then we also have here Q2, negative 3 microcoulomb. Then the distance between 2-point charges is
2 meters.
2 meters. So there you have here two charges having different signs. So meaning to say, if this is positive, then it is a proton, a
Yes.
positively charged particle. This is an electron.
So it's negative.
Negatively charged particle. So since they both have unlike charge, then according to the law of electrostatic, that opposite attracts.
Yes.
So meaning to say, the Q2 will move this way, and Q1 will also move
Yes.
this way. But if we go back to our problem, no, the problem states, find the magnitude of the force between two charges. So, force, let us review what is force, no? Force is a vector quantity.
Yes.
So, when you say vector quantity, it contains both magnitude and direction. So, what is asked in this problem, is just the magnitude.
Magnitude only.
So, meaning to say, magnitude is always positive, regardless of the
Charge.
signs or the charge of this Q1 and Q2. So, using the formula, Coulomb's law, which is F equals K Q1
Q2
Q2 divided by
R squared.
R squared. So, we have here the absolute value since we're talking about the
Positive,
magnitude.
yes.
Yeah, so absolute value meaning to say always
Positive.
Okay. So, K here is the proportionality constant, 9 times 10 raised to the power of 9 Newton times meter squared divided by Coulomb squared. Multiply by the
Q1.
magnitude of this charge,
Which is positive 5.
positive 5. Micro here stands for 10 to the power of negative 6. So it is much smaller than the column, micro
Yes.
column. So it is 5 times 10 to the negative 6 column multiplied by,
The Q2.
okay, let us put this, let's remove na lang this one, so inside the lang. Okay, multiplied by Q2 which is,
Negative 3.
okay,
Or 3.
negative 3 or positive 3 times 10 to
the
negative
power 6.
6 column divided by the distance between the two charges or the 2-point charges which is
2.
2. So
Square.
2 meter quantity squared. So take note of the unit. If we multiply both letter C, then it will result to C squared.
Yes.
So, since the unit of the proportionality constant has the C squared in its denominator, so we can actually cancel out. And when we raise meter to the square, then it will become meter
Meter
squared. Then therefore, we can cancel out the meter squared in the numerator.
Yes.
So what's left, Mame, is the unit of force, which is
Newton.
Newton. So by performing the solution or using your calculator at home, 9 times 10 to the power of 9 times 5 to the power times 10 to the negative 6 times 3 to the power of negative 6 divided by 2 squared is equal to 0.03 Newtons. So, grade 12 students, you can actually double check it at home if you have a scientific calculator.
Yes.
Much better gila ni Ma'am Maynong magamit sa scientific
Yes.
calculator because then again, we're talking on the microscopic level. So, ang unit yun niya, Ma'am May,
Kaya
is
nanagod siya
smaller.
exponent something,
Yes, something
sayang.
negative.
Yes.
Negative 6 exponent. Okay, so let us move to another example.
So, I hope no na naka-follow itong mga grade 12 learners.
Yes. So, since our learning competency, Ma'am May, talks about calculating the net electric force, so meaning to say, in reality, dili lang gid na duha ka point charges ang nag-interact. So, there are 3 or more point charges which are interacting in the atom. Okay. So, like for example, in this illustration, we have 3 point charges. Calculate the net force on Q3 due to Q1 and Q2. So we have 3 point charges. The Q1 is negatively charged particle, which is equivalent to negative 8 microcoulomb. the Q2 is positive,
3.
which is equivalent to
3.
3 microcoulomb. Then Q3 is negative. So Q3 is equivalent to
Negative 4.
negative 4 microcoulomb. Then the distance between Q1 and Q2 is
0.30 meter.
okay, 0.30 meters. The distance between Q2 and Q3 is
0.20.
okay, 0.20.
0.20.
Okay, 0.20 meters. Again, we are asked to find or to calculate the net force on Q3 due to Q1 and Q2. In other words, this point charge experiences a certain force due to these 2 point charges. So if we consider, so we can actually derive two values of the force. We have force on Q1, force on Q3 due to Q1. We also have force on Q3 due to Q2. Okay, so let us start first with the so actually, Ma'am May, because we're asked to find the electric force in this particular point charge, so this is our reference point. So, kay reference point man nato siya, Ma'am May, no? So we will base the direction of the forces on its iyahang interactive force. So, if we will talk on the direction of the force of Q3 with respect to Q1, notice na if tabunan nato si Q2, no, they are both negatively charged particle. So by the law of electrostatic, negative charge will repel.
Yes.
So meaning to say Q3 will move to the right, si Q1 will move to
the left.
The left. Okay. So since diri man ta mag-base, so ang atong direction ni force is going to
The right.
the right. So by applying the Coulomb's law, we have K Q1 Q2 divided by R squared. So proportionality constant 9 times 10 to the power of 9 Newton meter squared divided by Coulomb squared times Q1, which is
Negative 8.
okay, negative 8. But here's the thing, no, when we talk of when we solve the magnitude of the electrostatic force, we will disregard
The
the sign.
Yes.
So all the magnitude of the forces is positive. So that will be 8 times 10 to the negative 6 Coulomb times 4. Okay, remove sa nato na siya, no, aron di kay makalibog. 4 times 10 to the negative 6 Coulomb divided by the distance between the two is actually 0.3 plus 0.20. So that is 0.5 meters raised to the power of 2. By doing the by applying the calculator or doing the calculation, 9 times 10 to the power of 9 times 8 times 10 to the power of 6
Times
4 times 10 to the negative 6
Divided
by 0.5 squared is equal to 1.2 newtons. Again, since the electrostatic force is a vector quantity, therefore it includes magnitude and direction. So this is the magnitude of the force. However, we lack direction. Then again, using the illustration, the force of Q3 with respect to Q1 is going to the right. So it is going to the right.
So that's the direction.
Yes, that's the direction we made. Next is the force of Q3 due to Q2.
Q2.
So, I guess we can remove it muna, Mamay, no?
First na.
First lang. So for the force of Q3 due to Q2, take note that Q2 is positive and Q3 is negative. So, both unlike charges will attract. Now, with respect to the position of Q3, so it will move going to
The left.
the left. Therefore, force on Q3 due to Q2 is equal to, again, the formula of the Coulomb's law. So K is the constant, 9 times 10
To the power
raised
of
to the
9.
power of 9 Newton meter squared per column squared times the value of, no, sorry, that's Q3. The value of Q3, which is
4
4,
times 10 to the power of negative 6 column.
okay, times
3 times 10 to the power of negative 6 column.
divided by the distance between Q2 and Q3, which is 0.2 or 20
20 squared.
squared. The answer is 1.5 newtons. Now, this is the magnitude of the force, but take note, this is going to the left. So the direction is going to the left. Now, if we will get the net force, we shall consider the Cartesian coordinate plane. So let us say, or let us assume that this point is the origin of the Cartesian plane. So if we draw the imaginary x and y axis, so the force on Q3 due to Q1 is actually going to the positive x-axis. The force on Q2, the force of Q3 due to Q2 is going to the negative x-axis. Now, if we calculate the net force or the summation of the forces acting on the Q3, then we shall add F, this 1.2, which is F31, and F32, which is 1.5. However, since 1.5 is along the negative y-axis, therefore, it's negative. So 1.2 minus 1.5 is equal to negative 0.3 newtons. Okay? So that is the F net.
Or the net force.
Or the net force. I hope no nga nasabtan sa atong mga bata. So stay tuned because we will be right back after a short break. This is
Astral Academy Cyber School.
Kay ang mati ay sayo. Sa
And we are back still here in Astral Academy Cyber School. So we're done with the General Physics 2 subject. Now let's move on to our second subject, and that is General Biology 2. And let's talk about our topic for today, and that is genetic engineering and recombinant DNA technology. And for our learning competency, outline the processes involved in genetic engineering and discuss the applications of recombinant DNA. So in the previous lesson, you have already understood, learners, how DNA provides the genetic blueprint to produce different forms of cell and proteins within the body. So this instruction is tightly wrapped inside the nucleus and is utilized in the process of cell growth, maintenance, and reproduction. So in this lesson, we will be discussing about genetic engineering and the various techniques with which the instruction encoded within the genes can be manipulated to produce different forms of proteins and organisms. So before we talk about the different processes, Ma'am Chris, let's talk about what is genetic engineering. So when we say about genetic engineering, it's the artificial manipulation, modification, and recombination of DNA or other nucleic acids in molecules in order to modify an organism or population of organisms. So the term genetic engineering is initially referred to various techniques used for the modification or manipulation of organisms through the process of heredity and reproduction. So as such, the term embraced both artificial selection and all the intervention of biomedical techniques such as the artificial insemination, in vitro fertilization, or what you call the product as the test tube babies, and we have the cloning and also the gene manipulation.
Yes, so genetic engineering, no, Ma'am May, is the process of using recombinant DNA or rDNA technology to alter the genetic makeup of an organism. So traditionally, humans have manipulated genomes indirectly by controlling breeding and selecting offspring with desired traits. So genetic engineering involves the direct manipulation of one or more genes. So most often, a gene from another species is added to an organism's genome to give it a desired phenotype. Wow, no, amazing kasi
Yes.
genetic engineering, no? So it involves the use of molecular techniques to modify the traits of target organism. So the modification of traits may involve first, introduction of new traits into an organism. Second, enhancement of a present trait by increasing the expression of the desired gene. And third is the enhancement of a present trait by disrupting the inhibition of the desired gene's expression.
Alright, so genetic engineering relies on enzymes or the reactors.
Yes.
So let us know the roles of this enzyme in the process of genetic engineering. So there are two major enzymes involved in genetic engineering. The first enzyme is what you call the restriction enzyme. So this type of enzyme acts as scissors. So its job is to cut the DNA or the desired gene that you would like to transfer to another organism. And the second type of enzyme is what you call the ligase. So, kung nanay nag-cut nga sa restriction enzyme, napoy mag-glue together. And that's the function of the enzyme ligase. To glue pieces of DNA together.
So it's more of cut and glue din siya.
Yes. So that's the role of that enzymes. So there are many different restriction enzymes, and each restriction enzyme cuts at a unique DNA sequence. So the DNA sequence where enzyme cuts is called restriction site. So now let us talk about now the process involved in genetic engineering. So the first step is they're going to cut or cleavage of DNA by restriction enzyme or the REs. So the required gene or the gene of interest is identified or isolated and extracted from the chromosome using the enzyme. So the enzyme that's responsible for cutting is restriction enzyme. So it cuts DNA into fragments. And the second step is the selection of an appropriate vector or vehicle which would propagate the recombinant DNA. So for example, they used mostly the circular plasmid in bacteria with a foreign gene of interest. So the plasmid, so on your screens you can see there are a blue color round shape. So that's the plasmid. that is extracted from the bacterial cell. So when we say plasmid, it's the DNA of a bacteria in circular form. So dali raman na siya ma-extract sa bacteria, so that's why mo na siya commonly used nga sample. So after being extracted from the bacterial cell, the restriction enzyme is going to cut open that plasmid in order to insert the gene from the other organism to that plasmid of the bacterial cell. After being cut, now it's the time of the ligase enzyme to seal or join together this gene of interest, for example, from an animal, and with the gene or with the vector that is your cut bacterial plasmid. So on your screens, learners, no, that round blue shape is the vector, what do you call as plasmid or the circular DNA. So ang kana pong orange dira nga gene, it's your desired gene na imong gikuha from an organism, for example, an animal. So that gene will be inserted into the vector, which is the plasmid. So gikat naman na si gene using the restriction enzyme as well as the vector, gikat na po na siya to open using the restriction enzyme. It's now the use of the ligase enzyme to seal or join them together, forming a recombinant plasmid. When we say recombinant plasmid, it's the combination of two genes from different organisms, from an animal and from the bacterial cell in our example. So after joining them together, they're going now to transfer. So we are now on the fourth step of the genetic engineering, the transfer of the recombinant plasmid into the host cell. That would carry out replication to make huge copies of the recombined plasmid. So, na-combine na to nimo ang vector, ma'am, no, with your this gene of interest, but it will be useless if dili na siya ma-replicate. Kay siya na lang may usa. So, unsaon nimo siya pagkuha og copy if siya ray usa. So, you need to insert that one, transfer that into the host cell. So, since ang ato ang vector is from the bacterial cell, ibalik po nato atong plasmid dito sa bacterial cell. So, now, that plasmid is now recombinant plasmid because you added already the gene of your interest from an organism, which is from animal. So, by that, that bacterial cell is composed of recombinant plasmid. So, because they used bacterial cell kay dali ra man gud siya mo multiply, ma'am, because they undergone asexual reproduction. So, dali ra ma-replicate ang kana nga plasmid. So, they usually used bacterial cell. After that, kay daghan naman kayo siya copies of itself or cloned, they're going now to select the process or selection process to screen which cells actually contain the gene of interest. Kay not all bacterial cell would contain that recombinant plasmid because of some bad techniques or errors in the process. Na-adjy possibility nga dili na siya masulod sa other cells even though gi-replicate siya, but not all would be successful sa replication process. So kinahanglan jud og selection process. By that, the scientist would now then choose katong nga bacterial cells nga nanay recombinant plasmid for their gene of interest. So there are many examples where genetic engineering is used today. Like for example, in our food, most especially in our research, and for the medicine. But we're gonna focus on a specific medical example to understand the concept of how genetic engineering works. So let's have the example of humulin. So many siguro no learners who has a family member who is diabetic, they're familiar with this drug. It's humulin. So a humulin is a medication used for diabetics which is created with genetically modified bacteria. So humulin can be given to diabetic patients who lack insulin they need. So
How do they do this, ma'am?
yeah, so their body is not able to replicate enough amount of insulin. So kinahanglan sila mag-inject og insulin. So scientists figured out which section of our DNA codes for insulin. So when we atong nantawon atong DNA, it composed of chromosomes, and in the chromosomes na ay different genes which acts or functions to different atong color, atong hair. So na siya different naka-code na siya. So that that way, the scientists would figure out, ang gene responsible for the reproduction of insulin. By that, they used certain enzyme, what you call the restriction enzyme, to cut that gene, the gene used for producing insulin, and then they're going to isolate that and insert it into the bacterial cell. So in the bacterial cell, they're going to take out the plasmid, which will be our vehicle or sakinan sa atong gene of interest. And after that, they're going to be sealed together through the enzyme ligase. And now the result is a bacterial, recombinant bacterial plasmid, which produces now human insulin. So since bacteria can multiply really fast, you can create a lot of insulin in a very short amount of time. Kay, by that, gikan to na to ang insulin, ma'am, pero ato siyang gi-insert sa plasmid sa bacteria. And with that, that bacteria is now a recombinant bacteria because it contains recombinant plasmid. And by that, it replicates more and really fast. So the doctors can now get, again, the plasmid with that insulin from the bacteria being replicated through the process of genetic engineering. So how amazing our scientists and doctors to undergone this process, no? Kay with that, mga diabetic nga patient guro nato kay lang hinahanglan og insulin if wala na siya nga process, no?
Without
Luoy, guro.
genetic engineering,
Yes.
so dili good na ma-produce na nga
Yes,
certain
alright.
medication.
Yes, and there are many different traits also that can be introduced to organisms to change their properties. So on your screens, learners, now you can see table. Alright, napo na siya sa inyong SLM. We have the modified trait, the gene modification, the recipient organism, and the application in what field. So atong example ganina is the insulin production. So gi-modify ang gene by inserting human insulin gene into the bacteria. So si bacteria atong recipient organism. And that field is in the medicine. So production of human insulin in bacteria. So another example, Ma'am Chris?
So we also have no pest resistance. So the gene modification of that is the insertion of Bt toxin gene.
Yes.
So the recipient organism is corn or maize, and the application or the field of application is in agriculture, the production of corn plants with increased resistance to corn boxer.
Yeah, so that's why naay advantages pod ang genetic engineering,
Yes.
ma'am, kay ang mga farmers dili na siya sigig palit og mga pesticides.
Yeah.
Kay the scientists already introduced this process nga pwede na din siya mag-insert og desired gene para ma-control ang pest nila, no? Another example also is the delayed ripening, especially if layo kay ka, ma'am, tas i-travel pa imuhang mga
Yes,
products, di mga hinog na siya. So what they did is they applied or they disrupt gene for ripening enzymes. For example, that enzyme is called the polygalacturonase. So ilang gi-disrupt ang pag-ripen sa fruit or vegetable. So example of the recipient organism is the tomato plant. We know that ang tomato dali ra kay siya mahinog. Nya panangitan, ma'am, if layo kay ang biyahe, inigabot din mo sa merkado, hinog na. Pila ka days. So naa sila gi-introduce nga ilang i-disrupt ang gene for ripening the fruit, ilang gi-disrupt, ilang gi-delay, and the field
ang shelf life.
Yes, and the field of application in this example is in agriculture.
Yes.
So production of plants with fruits that have delayed ripening fruits. So these fruits will survive longer transport time, allowing their delivery to farther locations.
Yes, so we also have the chymosin production, the insertion of a gene for chymosin. So the recipient there is bacteria. So this is used in the field of industry, specifically in enhancing large-scale production of chymosin. So this enzyme serves as a substitute for rennet in the coagulation of milk. So rennet set of enzymes produced in the stomach of ruminant animals, and it has to be harvested from cows.
Yeah, so this rennet or chymosin is used in production of cheese.
Ah, okay.
And nagikuha pa na siya gikan sa mga ruminant animals or from cows. So by that, nag-insert na po sila, ma'am, in the bacteria to produce gene for chymosin production.
Okay.
So that's very amazing in the field of
Yes,
science,
that's
no?
right.
The introduction of genetic engineering, not only in the medicine field, but also in the agricultural
That's
field.
right, ma'am.
Alright, so let's have now our activity. So for your activity learners, you're going to look for 3 traits that is genetically modified in an organism. So you're going to provide the modified trait, gene modification, recipient organism, and its application. So in the example, katong insulin, ka-insert og insulin in the bacteria in the field of medicine.
Okay.
So I hope that you've learned something from our lesson today. And for our second attendance marker learners, na sa inyong screen.
Yes. Your second attendance marker for today's lesson, senior high school students.
All right, and we're done with our session for today, and we would like to extend our deepest thanks to our executive producer, no less than Sir Gasepe, to the production team, and to our dear learners who's with us this
Yes.
afternoon. So this has been Teacher May.
And this has been Ma'am Mary Chris Malalis.
This is Astral Academy Cyber School.
Bye!
Tayo na. Buksan ang mga radyo, lina at matuto sa mga aral sa mundo. Tayo na. Tumutok na sa TV, mag-aral ng maigi to get the lessons easily. It's tangkop, tangkop, tangkop time. We learn all things, it's very fine, masaya. Tutok na. It's tangkop, tangkop, tangkop time. We learn all things, it's very fine, masaya. Tutok na. Tayo na. Let's come and learn together, supporting one another. We love, we care, we share. It's tangkop, tangkop, tangkop time. We learn all things, it's very fine, masaya. Tutok na. It's tangkop, tangkop, tangkop time. We learn all things, it's very fine, masaya. Tutok na. It's tangkop, tangkop, tangkop time. We learn all things, it's very fine, masaya. Tutok na. It's tangkop, tangkop, tangkop time. We learn all things, it's very fine, masaya. Tutok na. It's tangkop, tangkop, tangkop time. We learn all things, it's very fine, masaya. Tutok na. Tangkop, tangkop time.
The Department of Education, Division of Tangub City, in partnership with the local government unit of Tangub, presents ang tungkol transforming advancement in the new normal, guiding K-12 learners under broadcast media, crafted in response to the need of making education possible and accessible to students at the comfort of their homes. It covers the most essential competencies thematically layered in drama plays, which were originally written, directed, and performed by teachers to see to it that education is securely provided. This is Ang Tangkub.
It's tangkub, tangkub, tangkub time. We learn all things, it's very fun, masaya. Tangkub lang.
Hello, grade 7 students! Welcome to the first episode for quarter 3 of Ang Tangkub, TV-based instruction.
Today, we will describe the motion of an object in terms of distance or displacement.
In life, do you consider yourself in motion?
If your answer is yes, then you're in the right track. Basically, we always move from the moment we wake up and prepare ourselves for the rest of the day. We cannot do something if we don't move.
So brace yourselves, for we will be talking about motion. In science, motion is defined as the change in position for a particular time interval. If we do not see a body moving, but observe that it has changed position, we can say that it has moved with respect to its original position. Thus, the original position serves as the reference point. A reference point is important in describing the motion of bodies. An object may be moving with respect to another reference. For example, when you are inside a bus, you are not moving with respect to the other passengers, but you are moving with respect to the ground. When we talk about motion, there are two things to describe on how far did the object travel. First is by getting the total length of the path traveled by the object. Second is by measuring the distance between the initial position and final position of the object. For example, the car ran 200 meters from point A to point B, then 50 meters from point B to point C, and another 200 meters from point C to point D. In getting the total length of path traveled, you can simply add the length of path from point A to B, B to C, and C to D. Total length of path is equal to length A to B plus length B to C plus length C to D. Therefore, 200 meters plus 50 meters plus 200 meters is equal to 450 meters. The length of the entire path that the object traveled is referred to as distance. Based on the example, the total length of path is equal to 450 meters. This means that the distance traveled by the car is equal to 450 meters.
Aside from distance, there is also another quantity that describes the motion of the object. Based on the given illustration, the length from the initial position of the object to its final position is referred to as displacement. Displacement refers to the shortest distance between the object's two positions, like the distance between its point of origin and its point of destination, no matter what path it took to get to that destination. In getting the displacement of the car, simply subtract the final position by the initial position. Displacement is equal to final position minus initial position is equal to 50 meters minus 0. Therefore, displacement is equal to 50 meters. Displacement is determined by getting the actual length from the initial position to the final position. Based on the illustration, the length from the initial position to the final position is 50 meters south.
For you to understand better about distance and displacement, let's have another example. Jessa walks 2 kilometers from her home to visit her grandmother's house. At the end of the day, she went back to her home. How far did Jessa travel back and forth? What is Jessa's total displacement? Since the distance traveled by Jessa going to her grandmother's home is 2 kilometers, and she traveled another 2 kilometers going back to her home, therefore, the total distance is 4 kilometers. On the other hand, to know the total displacement, it is very important to determine the initial and final position. Basically, the initial position of Jessa is at her home, which is 0, and the final position of Jessa is still at home. Thus, the value of displacement is 0.
Now, let's have another example. Patrick travels 250 meters to north but then backtracks to south for 105 meters to pick up a friend. What is Patrick's total distance and displacement? To calculate the distance, add all the lengths traveled by Patrick. Thus, distance is equal to 250 meters plus 105 meters is equal to 355 meters. Whereas, the displacement is the length between the final position and the initial position. The final position is the distance traveled north minus the distance traveled south. The initial position is 0. Therefore, displacement is equal to 250 meters minus 105 meters minus 0 is equal to 145 meters north. Take note that distance is a scalar quantity. It has magnitude but no direction. On the other hand, displacement is a vector quantity. It has both the magnitude and direction. That's why, if the problem involves direction, it is important to write the direction of the total displacement, just like what we did in the previous example. The value of displacement is 145 meters north, since the length between initial and final position is 145 meters going to north direction.
Hope you learned something new today, kiddos. This time, kindly get your activity sheet number 1 in Sign 7. Directions. Using the figure below, trace the distance and displacement. Use bold line to trace the distance and broken lines to trace the displacement. Answer the following questions below the graph. Use your time wisely, learners. Good luck and God bless. This has been Miss Mary Chris Malalis
And Miss Vernalane Carpio, your science teachers.
Always remember to keep reading
Keep watching
and keep learning at home.
Bye!
Inihahandog ng Dibisyon ng Tangub City. Ang iba't ibang kwento, aral, at kaalaman habang kayo ay nasa inyong mga tahanan. TV-based instruction.
Hello and good day, grade 8 learners! Welcome to the third episode of ang Tangkub, TV-based instruction.
In this episode, you will be able to explain the properties of solids and liquids based on the particle nature of matter.
Let's start with solid. Have you experienced dropping a stone into a glass? Would anything happen to the shape and size of the stone? Would the shape or size of the stone change if you put it on a large pail? Even in a pail, stone keeps its original shape and volume. The stone shape and volume stay the same no matter what size you drop into, because the stone is a solid. Solid is the state of matter that has a definite shape and volume. Solids are less compressible. The particles of a substance in a solid state are very close together. The solid are packed closely together. They vibrate a little in place but in fixed positions. They are locked in place by particles around it. They do not move fast enough the attraction between them. Solids have a definite shape and a definite volume.
Who figured out that matter is composed of tiny particles called atoms? It was Leucippus, and Democritus had an idea that atoms have a particle that surround them but had no concrete size and shape. Believed that atoms are physical in nature but had no shape at all. John Dalton was able to concretize evidence that atom is a particle that cannot be seen by our naked eye. He was able to present and found out the best evidence that matter is made up of tiny particles. Particles of matter keep on moving all the time, but they differ in its movement as to what state of matter they belong.
Have you experienced transferring the soft drink from a small container to the large one? What do you think would change about soft drink if you pour it into a glass? Would the volume of the soft drink be different? Or would the taste of the soft drink change? The only thing that would change when the soft drink is poured into the glass is the shape of the soft drink. The shape changes because soft drink is a liquid. Liquid is the state of matter that has a definite volume but takes the shape of its container. The particles in liquids move fast enough to overcome some of the attraction between them. The particles slide past each other until the liquid takes the shape of its container. Although liquids change shape, but they do not easily change volume. Soft drink contains a certain volume of liquid. That volume stays the same even if you pour soft drinks into a large container or a small one.
Particles of the liquid move fast enough to overcome some of the attractions between them. The particles are close together but can slide past each other. Liquids have unique characteristics. A special property of liquids is the surface tension. Surface tension is a force that acts on the particles at the surface of a liquid. Surface tension causes some liquids to form spherical drops like the beads of water. Different liquids have different surface tensions. For example, cooking oil has a very low surface tension and forms flat drops. Another important property of liquids is viscosity. Viscosity is a liquid's resistance to flow. Usually, the stronger the attractions between the particles of a liquid, the more viscous the liquid is. For example, syrup flows more slowly than water. So syrup has a higher viscosity than water.
Hope you learned something new today, learners. Now, kindly get your activity sheet number 1 in Science 8. Directions. Answer the following questions in 1 to 3 sentences. Good luck and God bless, learners. This has been Miss Bernalane Carpio
And Miss Mary Chris Malalis,
your science teachers.
always remember to keep reading.
Keep watching and keep learning at home. Bye!
Inihahandog ng Dibisyon ng Tangub City ang iba't ibang kwento, aral, at kaalaman habang kayo ay nasa inyong mga tahanan. TV-based instruction.
grade 9 learners! Welcome to the first episode for quarter 3 of Ang Tangkub, TV-based instruction.
Have you been in Albay to see the beautiful Mayon?
How about Batangas to see the Taal volcano?
Have you observed that volcanoes are of different shapes?
You will know more about it as we talk about the types of volcanoes and volcanic eruption.
A volcano is an opening on the surface of a planet or moon that allows material warmer than its surroundings to escape from its interior. A typical volcano has a summit, slope, and a base. At the summit, there is an opening which may either be a crater or a caldera. A crater is a funnel-shaped opening at the top of a volcano, while a caldera is formed when a part of the wall collapses after an explosive eruption. Volcanoes are described according to its type of eruption and cone shape. Volcanic eruption happens when magma, gases, and other molten materials are discharged from the opening. Since volcanic eruptions are caused by magma expelled onto the Earth's surface, we must first identify the factors that causes the viscosity of magma. Viscosity is the property of the material's resistance to flow. The more viscous and thicker the magma is, the greater is its resistance to flow. The first factor is temperature. The higher the temperature of magma, the lower is its viscosity. As lava flows, it travels far before it begins to harden. On the other hand, if the temperature of magma is lower, the higher is its viscosity, so the lava does not travel far. The second factor is the chemical composition. Magma with high silica content is more viscous than those with low silica content. It is too viscous, so it does not travel far and tends to break up as it flows. The magma that contains less silica is relatively fluid, so it travels far before solidifying. The third factor is the amount of dissolved gases it contains. When magma has high amount of gas, mainly water vapor, lava flow is less viscous and increases its ability to flow. Magma has high viscosity when it has low amount of gas as it rises. The ability of the lava to flow decreases, so it piles up at a vent resulting in a columnar or a dome.
Now, let's proceed to the types of volcanoes. After a volcanic eruption, a cone-shaped structure may be produced. Its slope also changes. The following are the 3 types of volcanoes according to the shape of their cones. First, shield volcanoes are formed by the pile-up of non-viscous lava that oozes out from the volcano. They are called shield volcanoes because they look like a shield when viewed from above. The lava that comes from this kind of mountain is thin, and they are prone to travel for long distances. These volcanoes can build up over the years to form mountains. Mauna Loa volcano in Hawaii is an example of this type. Some of the shield volcanoes in the Philippines are Biliran volcano in the province of Biliran, Iraya in the province of Batanes, Canlaon in Negros Island, and Mariveles in Bataan Peninsula. Next, composite volcanoes are formed due to alternating solidification of both lava and pyroclastic deposits, which makes it nearly a perfect sloped structure. Pyroclastic flows occur when these volcanoes erupt. With all the materials blowing up and depositing themselves on top of the land surface, they can build up to thousands of feet tall. Mount St. Helens in Washington and Mount Vesuvius in Italy are examples of this type. Here are the kinds of volcanoes in the Philippines that are categorized as composite volcanoes. Mount Mayon in Albay, Mount Pinatubo in Zambales, Mount Bulusan in Sorsogon, and Mount Arayat in Pampanga. Lastly, cinder cones are formed from alternating ejected lava fragments and ash. They have a steep slope, wide crater on top, and are the most abundant of the three major volcano types. Although small, they are also destructive since they release high amounts of pyroclastic materials. Mount Paricutin in Mexico, which has erupted in 1943, Taal volcano in Batangas are examples of this type. Volcanoes erupt differently, and not all of them are violent. Magma can explode from the vent or it can flow out of the volcano. In addition to the top vent, magma and gas may escape through cracks and weak areas on the sides of the volcano. Aside from lava, pyroclastic flows, ash clouds, and mud flows or lahar can be extremely dangerous. The levels of silica and dissolved gases in the magma determine whether a volcano erupts explosively or not.
Here are the different types of volcanic eruption. A. Phreatic or hydrothermal is a steam blast small eruption as hot rocks hit the groundwater or surface water. This eruption tears down surrounding rocks and can produce ash columns but do not include magma. Taal volcano, which erupted last January 12, 2020, is an example of this type. B. Phreatomagmatic, a violent and explosive eruption resulting from the interaction of new magma or lava with water. It results to a large column of very fine ash, high speed and sideway emission of pyroclastic. C. Strombolian, least violent type of explosive eruption characterized by a fountain of lava fragments. Eruptions are weak to a little more violent, which has thicker lava flows and small explosions. D. Volcanian, small to moderate explosive eruptions characterized by tall columns that reach up to 20 kilometers high with pyroclastic flow and ashfall tephra. They have larger explosions of rocks and ashes which rise in dark clouds lasting for seconds to minutes. Paricutin volcano eruption in Mexico is an example of this type. E. Plinian, excessively explosive type of eruption of gas and pyroclastic like that of Mount Pinatubo eruption in 1991. The explosive eruptions, lasting for seconds to minutes, have 20 to 35 kilometers tall gas, rock particles, and ash columns.
That's it for today, grade 9 learners. This time, kindly get your activity sheet number 1 in Science 9. Activity 1. Directions. Underline the type of volcano in the first column. Then fill in the statements by using the word bank below. Activity 2. Directions. Fill in the table below. Some example answers are given. Use your time wisely, learners. Good luck and God bless. This has been Miss Mary Chris Malalis
And Miss Vernalaine Carpio, your science teachers. Always remember to keep reading
Keep watching
and keep learning at home. Bye!
Inihahandog ng Dibisyon ng Tangub City ang iba't ibang kwento, aral, at kaalaman habang kayo ay nasa inyong mga tahanan. TV-based instruction.
Hey there, grade 10 learners! Welcome to the brand new episode for third quarter of ang Tangkub, TV-based instruction.
Every day, we meet different forms of life. In higher forms of organisms, just like humans, the sex is distinct, which could either be male or female. In this episode, you will be able to identify the parts that make up the male reproductive system, describe the parts of male reproductive system, and give the functions of these parts.
You have learned that cells make up a tissue, tissue make up an organ, and organ make up an organ system. Let us now understand the organ system to know specifically how the individual parts of the male reproductive organ work.
By the way, the reproductive system of humans does not fully become active until an individual reaches puberty. The male reproductive system performs the following functions: secretion of the male sex hormones, production of sperm cells, and transfer of sperm cells. The male reproductive system includes the structures seen in this figure. The male gonads are the testes. Its singular form is testis, hanging in the scrotum. Sperm production requires a slightly lower temperature than the human body. That is why the scrotum hangs loosely outside the body cavity. However, when the testis fails to descend, it leads to sterility because of the inhibiting effect of normal body temperature on sperm development.
To summarize, the male reproductive system consists of the following important structures. The testis produces sperm cells. Scrotum, a sac that holds the testis. Penis places sperm into the vagina during mating. The tube or vas deferens carries sperm from the testes to the urethra. Urethra carries sperm out of the body. Glands provide liquid in which sperm can swim. Type of glands are seminal vesicle, prostate gland, and Cowper's gland or bulbourethral gland. Seminal vesicle secretes one of the components of the semen. Prostate gland secretes a milky fluid that is discharged into the urethra as part of the semen. Cowper's gland or bulbourethral gland, a mucus-secreting gland located at the base of the penis.
In this section, each of the male reproductive parts is discussed. Penis. The penis is only an accessory organ for reproduction, and not the reproductive organ itself, as most people think of. It is the organ for copulation, and it functions in the transfer of sperm cells from the male to the vagina of the female. It is composed of erectile tissues, and the engorgement of the erectile tissue with blood causes the penis to enlarge and become firm in a process called erection. Testes or testes. The testes are organs within the scrotum, each about 4 to 5 centimeters long, and are composed of cone-shaped lobules that contain seminiferous tubules in which sperm cells develop. Epididymis. Epididymis is a tightly coiled series of thread-like tubules that form a comma-shaped structure on the posterior side of the testes. The sperm cells continue to mature along this tube. Vas deferens. From the epididymis, the sperm moves to this tube up to the ampulla of the ductus deferens. The wall of this tube is composed of smooth muscles. The vas deferens emerges from the epididymis and ascends along the posterior side of the testis to become associated with the blood vessels and nerves that supply the testis. Urethra. The urethra is a pathway for both urine and male reproductive fluids, but these do not exit the urethra at the same time. Thus, there is no mixing. The male urethra connects from the urinary bladder to the distal end of the penis, while seminal fluid passes through the urethra. A reflex causes the urinary sphincter muscles to contract tightly to keep urine from passing the urinary bladder through the urethra. Scrotum. The scrotum consists of skin. In cold temperatures, the scrotum becomes firm and wrinkled, reducing the overall size of the scrotum. Ejaculatory duct. The ejaculatory duct connects into the prostate gland and ends by joining the urethra within the prostate gland.
The formation of sperms. Each testis is partitioned into as many as 300 wedge-shaped lobes. Each contains 2 to 3 highly coiled tubes, the seminiferous tubules, and this is where sperms develop. Although a testis is only about 5 centimeters long, 125 meters of tubes are packed in it. When sperm cells move out of the testis, they enter a long coiled duct, which is the epididymis. They are not fully developed at this time, but secretions from the duct walls help them mature. When they are about to leave the body, they pass through a thick-walled tube called the vas deferens, and then to the ejaculatory ducts, and finally to the urethra where they are ejected. When a male is sexually aroused, sperm cells begin their journey through the vas deferens and then exit through the urethra. During this time, they collect fluid along the way. The following glands contribute fluid to the traveling sperm cells, which are A. The seminal vesicles. These secrete a thick fluid that contains nutrients. B. The prostate gland secretes a thick milky alkaline fluid to counteract the acidic vagina and the urethra, and it activates the sperms. Lastly, letter C, the bulbourethral gland or Cowper's gland produces the lubricating effect. Altogether, the sperm and the fluids make up the semen. During a male's arousal, spongy erectile tissues in the penis are filled with blood, causing the penis to become hard, erect, and enlarged.
Now let's discuss about testosterone, or the male sex hormone. Testosterone is the main male sex hormone secreted by the testes. This hormone is responsible for the normal development of the organs of the male reproductive system. It also brings about the changes experienced during puberty. The changes that appear at 10 to 14 years of age eventually distinguish the male's secondary characteristics. Secondary male characteristics among males include growth of facial, underarm, chest, pubic and body hair, enlargement of the voice box, deepening of the voice, development of the male musculature, and increased secretion of sweat and oil. Moreover, testosterone is responsible for a male's muscular strength. This is why some athletes take steroids that contain testosterone or other similar compounds. However, taking steroids have been proven to produce harmful effects, and it may even result to mental problems.
Now, kindly get your activity sheet number 1 in Science 10. Directions. Choose the capital letter of the best answer. Write your chosen letter on the space provided before the number. Take your time and think wisely, learners. You can do it! This has been Miss Bernalyn Carpio
And Miss Mary Chris Malalis,
your science teachers. Always remember to keep reading,
keep watching,
and keep learning at home. Bye!
We hope that you have learned the most essential lessons you need to master. See you on our next episodes. This has been
We share.
Ang Tangkub.
It's tangkub time. We learn all things. It's very fun. Masaya. Tangkub time.
Kung gusto mong maglingaw-lingaw, mga tawag magloling hayaw, mag-joyride na. Uba na ang imong barkada, silingan o pamilya, mag-joyride na. Sinatiun tang palibot, mga lugar sulod sa tanggob, mag-ubanta. Tam silang gato makilaw, sa sanabog sa pulaw, laagunta. Labi na yun sa huyuhoy, ugnang dapit tagkano kahoy, talanan. Maglibot tango, maglibot tango kita. Maglibay-libay, magsakay-sakay tala. Magkikiusap, magkikigala, let's get together, make life feel better. Gusto ka og entertainment, for fun and for enjoyment, no problem ka. Sinanduloy among pambato, kumusayo smart kaayo, believe jud ka. Panahon sab sa Disyembre, super gid ka aligre, malingaw gid ka. Fireworks display, daghang ganahan, musidlak sa kalangitan, mapawagid ka. Christmas symbols, capital of the Philippines. Ninira na ninyo makita, friends, diba? Diri sa tanggok, maglibot tanggok ta. Maglipay-lipay, magsakay-sakay tala. Maghihiusa, maghihigala. Let's get together, make life feel better. Makita, friends, diba? Hapit sa tanggok, maglibot tanggok ta. Maglipay-lipay, magsakay-sakay tala. Maglibot tanggok, maglibot tanggok ta. Maglibot tanggok, maglibot tanggok ta. Maglibot tanggok, maglibot tanggok ta. Maghihiusa, maghihigala. Let's get together, make life feel better.
Good afternoon to our junior high school learners who are watching via our Facebook Live at DepEd Tayo Tanggub and Astral Academy. I am Mary Chris Malalis from Bintana Integrated School.
And I am Miss Bernalyn Carpio from Tanggub City National High School. We are your teacher facilitators today.
Good afternoon, Ma'am Bern.
Good afternoon, Ma'am Chris.
How are you this afternoon, Ma'am Bern?
I'm very fine, Ma'am Chris. How about you, Ma'am Chris?
Well, same as usual, very fine as well. So today is February 9, 2022, and we will be discussing topics about science.
So let us see our topics for today.
For Science 7, we have distance and displacement.
For Science 8, we have Properties of solids and liquids.
For Science 9, we have the types of volcanoes and volcanic eruption.
And for Science 10, we have the male reproductive system.
Okay, so more discussion when we return. This is
Astral Academy Cyber School.
Okay, so now Ma'am Bern, let us proceed with our Science 7 with learning competency. Describe the motion of an object in terms of distance and displacement. Okay.
This is the way we speak. This is the way we read. This is the way we write. This is the English way. This is the way we speak. This is the way we read. This is the way we write. This is the English way. Come and learn to speak and write of the language of the world. Learn.
And we are back still here in Astral Academy Cyber School.
Okay, Ma'am Bern, so let's start with our topic in Science 7 with learning competency. Describe the motion of an object in terms of distance or displacement. So in today's lesson, you will know how to describe the motion of an object based on its distance traveled and displacement.
So, but before anything else, Ma'am Chris, let us first define motion. So, in science, motion is defined as the change in position for a particular time interval.
Okay, so what we can say that an object is in motion if its location changes with respect to the frame of reference. So when we say frame of reference, it is the basis for which we describe that an object is in motion or not. So for example, when you're inside a bus, you're not moving with respect to the other passengers, but you are moving with respect to the ground.
Yes, so when we talk about motion, there are two things to describe on how far did the object travel. So first is by getting the total length of the path traveled by the object, and second is by measuring the distance between the initial position and final position of the object.
Okay, so for example, as shown in your screen right now, the car ran 100 meters from point A to point B, then 50 meters from point B to point C, and another 100 meters from point C to point D. So in getting the total length of path traveled, you can simply add the length of path from point A to B, B to C, and C to D. Therefore, the total length of path is equal to the length from A to B, which is 100 meters, plus the length from B to C, which is 50 meters, plus the length from C to D, which is 100 meters. Therefore, the total length of path is equal to 250 meters. So the length of the entire path that the object traveled is referred to as distance. So based on the example, the total length of path is equal to 250 meters. This means that the car moves at a distance equal to 450 meters.
Yes, so aside from distance, there is also another quantity that describes the motion of the object. So as shown on your screens right now, based on the given illustration, the length from the initial position of the object to its final position is referred to as displacement. Displacement refers to the shortest distance between the object's two positions, like the distance between its point of origin and its point of destination, no matter what path it took to get to the destination. So, that's it, Ma'am Chris.
So, in getting the displacement of the car, simply subtract the final position by the initial position. So, for example, Ma'am Bern, let's go back to our situation.
Yes, so car, point
So,
A,
this is the initial position of the car. Then it traveled 100
meters,
from point A to
point B.
point B. Then it traveled 50 meters from point B to point C. Then another 100 meters from point C to
D.
D. So unlike distance wherein we just add 150 and 100 meters, for displacement we simply get the length
Yes.
traveled by the object from initial position to its final
destination.
or final destination.
Yes.
So as you can see, Ma'am Verno, this is just equal to the length of the path traveled from point B to C, which is equal to
50 meters.
50 meters. Okay. And of course, we need to take note that distance and displacement is different in a way that distance is a scalar quantity, therefore it just involves magnitude, while displacement is a vector quantity, therefore it involves magnitude and direction. So since we're going to get the length from the initial position going to the final position, therefore it's going to south. So 50 meters south is the displacement of the object.
Yes, so for you to understand better about distance and displacement, let's have another example. So Jessa, as shown on your screens right now, Jessa walks 2 kilometers from her home to visit her grandmother's house. At the end of the day, she went back to her home. How far did Jessa travel back and forth? What is Jessa's total displacement? So since the distance traveled by Jessa going to her grandmother's home is 2 kilometers, and she traveled another 2 kilometers going back to her home, therefore, the total distance is 4 kilometers. So on the other hand, to know the total displacement, it is very important to determine the initial and final position. Basically, the initial position of Jessa is at her home, which is 0, and at the final position of Jessa is still at home. Thus, the value of displacement is still 0.
Because again, ibalik naman siya,
Yes.
Vern. So the original position is still the
Final
position.
yes.
Okay, so let's have another example as shown on your screen. Patrick travels 250 meters to north, then backtracks to south. Okay, let's illustrate that one on Vern, no?
Yes.
So Patrick traveled 250 meters to north. So assuming that this is the initial position, Then, she traveled 250
50
meters. So, this is the second position. Then, what happened to Patrick?
Backtracks to south
So,
for 105 meters.
so he went back
Yes.
to south for 105
105 meters.
meters.
So to pick up a friend, what is Patrick's total distance and displacement?
Okay. So, to solve for the total distance, again, we just need to add the total length of path traveled by
Yes.
Patrick. So, distance is 250
Plus 105
plus 105.
meters. So it is equal to 355 meters. Whereas the displacement is the length between the final position and the initial position. Yes.
Okay. So, basically, the final position of Patrick is at point C.
Yes.
Kinibalik man siya
Yes.
mga no? And the
Distance traveled north minus the distance traveled south. So the
Okay.
initial position is 0. So,
So
0,
displacement
therefore
is?
displacement is equal to 250 meters minus or subtracted by 105 meters minus 0 is equal to 145 meters.
Okay. So, that is Patrick's total.
145 meters north.
Okay, 145
45 meters north.
Okay, meters north.
North,
They need to understand ganong north siya, Ma'am Verno, because again, it is the length from the origin or from the initial position going to the final position. So,
Yes.
it's going up. So, north.
North,
Iyahang
yes.
direction. Okay.
So, the value of displacement is 145 meters north since the length between initial and final positions is 145 meters going to the north, Ma'am Chris. So, again.
So, that's right. So, therefore, in terms of distance, we can describe motion of an object as the state of traveling a certain path. On the other hand, an object has displacement if its final position is no longer found in the original location of the object. Okay.
So, for your further activities, Ma'am Chris, so directions using the figure, there's a figure there on your
Yourself.
SLM, yes, trace the distance and displacement. So, use bold line to trace the distance and broken lines to trace the displacement. Answer the following questions or the guide questions below the graph.
Okay. So, more discussion when we return. This is
Astral Academy Cyber School.
And we are back still here
in Astral Academy Cyber School. So let's proceed with Science 8 now, Ma'am Chris, no? So with learning competency, explain the properties of solids and liquids based on the particle nature of matter.
So in this lesson, you will be able to explain what are the different properties of solids and liquids. So based on the particle nature of matter.
Yes, Ma'am Chris. So let's start with solid, Ma'am Chris. And let's have this scenario as shown on your screens right now. When you drop a stone into a glass, nothing will happen to the shape or size of the stone. And it will not change even in larger containers like in the video shown to you in a pail. So Ma'am Chris, even in a pail, stone keeps its original shape and volume. The stone shape and volume stay the same no matter what size you drop into because the stone is a solid. So solid is the state of matter that has a definite shape and volume.
That's right. So as shown on your screens, solids are less compressible, meaning to say they cannot be compressed easily. The particles of a substance in a solid state are very close together. So the solid are packed closely together and they vibrate a little in place but in fixed positions. So they are locked in place by particles around it. They do not move fast enough, the attraction between them. So solids have a definite shape and a definite volume.
Yes, so this time let's have liquid. So as shown on your screens right now, the scenario of transferring water from a container to the glass. So what do you think would change about water if you pour the water into a glass, Ma'am Chris?
So the only thing that would change when the water is poured into the glass is the shape of the water. So the shape changes because water is a liquid. So liquid is the state of matter that has a definite volume but takes the shape of its container.
Yes, so the particles in liquids as shown on your screens right now move fast enough to overcome some of the attraction between them. The particles slide past each other until the liquid takes the shape of its container. Although liquids change shape, they do not easily change volume. So the water shown earlier contains a certain volume of liquid. So the volume stays the same if you pour the water into a large container or a small one.
Yes, so particles of a liquid move fast enough to overcome some of the attraction between them. So the particles are close together but can slide past one another. So liquids have unique characteristics. So a special property of liquids shown on your screens is the surface tension. So surface tension is a force that acts on the particles at the surface of a liquid. So this is an example of that, Ma'am Verno, or that is the reason why insects can float into the water because of
slider.
surface tension. Yeah. So surface tension causes some liquids to form spherical drops like the beads of water. So different liquids have different surface tension.
Yes, so for example, shown on your screens right now, cooking oil has a very low surface tension and forms flat drops.
So cooking oil versus water, so mas kuan gyud si water.
Yes.
Yeah. That's higher surface tension compared to the cooking oil.
Yes, so another important property of liquids shown on your screens right now is viscosity. So viscosity is a liquid's resistance to flow. Usually, the stronger the attractions between the particles of a liquid, the more viscous the liquid is.
Yes.
Yes.
An example of that, Ma'am Verno, is a shampoo. It's
Yes.
very viscous
Than
compared
water.
to water.
Yes.
And others are blood rather, compared to water, so it's more
Viscous, yes.
And of course, kanang mga asphalt. Asphalt it has higher viscosity than water.
Yes, another example, Ma'am Chris, is syrup and water.
Yes.
So, syrup has higher viscosity than water, as shown on your screens right now.
Yes, so that's it, learners. Hope you learned something new today. Now for your activity, you need to answer the different question in 1 to 3 sentences only. More discussion when we return. This is
Astral Academy Cyber School.
And we are back still here in Astral
Academy Cyber School.
Okay, so before we proceed with our Science 9, Ma'am Vern,
Yes.
let us first have our second attendance marker on top of your screen.
Yes, second attendance marker.
Yes. So now, moving on with the learning competency for Science 9, describe the different types of volcanoes and volcanic eruption. So in this learning competency, you will learn about the description of the different types of volcanoes as well as the volcanic eruption.
Yes, so it is very important to learn about this concept, Ma'am Chris, because our country, Philippines, belongs to Pacific Ring of Fire, which is bounded with different types of volcanoes and experience volcanic eruption.
Yes, so when we say volcano, it is an opening on the surface of the planet that allows material warmer than its surroundings to escape from its interior. So as shown in your screen, a typical volcano usually has a summit, slope, and base. So at the summit, there is an opening which may either be a crater or a caldera. So a crater is a funnel-shaped opening at the top of the volcano, while a caldera is formed when a part of the wall collapses after an explosive eruption. So volcanoes are described according to its type of eruption and shape.
So now let's proceed to the types of volcanoes. So as shown on your screens right now, first we have shield volcanoes. They are called shield volcanoes because they look like a shield when viewed from above.
That's right.
So the lava that comes from this kind of mountain is thin and they are prone to travel for long distances. These volcanoes can be built up over the years to form mountains. So some of the shield volcanoes in the Philippines are Biliran volcano in the province of Iraya, and in the province of Batanes, Canlaon, and in the province in the Negros Island, and Mariveles in Bataan Peninsula.
Okay, so unlike a shield volcano, we also have another type of volcano which is composite volcanoes. So they have a nearly perfect sloped structure just like the cone of the ice cream.
Yes.
So here are the kinds of volcanoes in the Philippines that are categorized as composite volcanoes. Example of that are Mount Mayon in Albay, Mount Pinatubo in Zambales, Mount Bulusan in Sorsogon, and Mount Araya in Pampanga.
And lastly, Ma'am Chris, there is cinder cone
Yes.
volcano. Yes, so have a steep slope, wide crater on top, and are the most abundant of the three major volcano types. Although small, they are also destructive since they release high amounts of pyroclastic materials. So Taal volcano in Batangas is an example of this type.
Yes, so after knowing the different types of volcanoes, let us proceed with the different types of volcanic eruption. So volcanoes erupt differently and not all of them are violent. So the first type of volcanic eruption is phreatic or hydrothermal. So as shown on your screen, when we talk about phreatic or hydrothermal volcanic eruption, it is a steam blast small eruption as hot rocks hit the groundwater or surface water. So it may produce ash columns but do not include lava. So more of kanang aso,
Ashes,
steam.
yes. So, shown on your screens right now, next is phreatomagmatic.
Yes.
Yes, phreatomagmatic, a violent and explosive eruption. So, resulting from the interaction of magma or lava with water. So, it results to a large column of very fine ash, high speed and sideway emission of pyroclastic.
So unlike the first type of volcanic eruption,
The phreatic, yes.
The phreatomagmatic is it has a steam blast as
Yes.
well as a magma.
Yes.
So nana siya pyroclastic flow or emission of pyroclastic materials.
Yes.
And we also have another type of volcanic eruption which is strombolian. It is a least violent type of explosive eruption characterized by a fountain of lava fragments. So eruptions are weak to a little more violent, which has thicker lava flows and small explosions. So parang siyang fountain.
Yes.
That's strombolian volcanic eruption.
And next, Ma'am Chris, we have volcanian
Yes.
eruptions. So small to moderate explosive eruptions characterized by tall columns that reach up to 20 kilometers high with pyroclastic flow and ashfall tephra. So they have larger explosions of rocks and ashes which rise in dark clouds lasting for seconds to minutes.
Okay, so the last type of volcanic eruption is more likely the same as volcanian. However, it has a wide range pa siya, or it has longer range. So plinian, excessively explosive type of eruption of gas and pyroclastic that last for seconds to minutes and have a range of 20 to 35 kilometers, and it releases gas, rock particles, and ash columns.
Yes, so that's all, grade 9 students, and for your activity directions, underline the type of volcano in the first column, then fill in the statements by using the word bank below the
Yes.
statement. Yes,
Yes,
so
another activity is you have to fill in the table with some examples. Some examples are given in the table. So stay tuned because we will be right back after a short break. This is
Astral Academy Cyber School.
Dali naman science na kita, mag-observe o mag-discover ta, living things o non-living things, mga stars o mga planeta. Dali naman science na kita, mag-observe o mag-discover ta, living things o non-living things, mga stars o mga planeta, mga stars o mga planeta, mga stars o mga planeta.
And we are back, still here
In Astral Academy Cyber School. So, Science 10 na Ma'am Chris, no? So, with learning competency, identify the parts that make up the male reproductive system. Describe the parts of the male reproductive system and give the functions of these parts. So, yes, Ma'am Chris. So, every day we meet different forms of life. In higher forms of organisms, just like humans, the sex is distinct, which could either be male or female. So in this episode, you will be able to identify the parts that make up the male reproductive system, describe the parts and the functions, and give the functions of these parts.
Yes, so you have learned that cells make up a tissue, then tissues make up an organ, and organs make up a system. So let us now understand the organ system to know specifically how the individual cells of the male reproductive system work.
Yes, so the reproductive system of humans does not fully become active until an individual reaches puberty, Ma'am Chris. So the male reproductive system performs the following functions: secretion of the male sex hormones, production of sperm cells, and transfer of sperm cells.
Yes, so the male gonads, as shown on your screens, are the testes hanging in the scrotum. So sperm production requires a slightly lower temperature than the human body. That is why the scrotum hangs loosely outside the lower body cavity. So however, when the testis fails to descend, it leads to sterility because of the inhibiting effect of normal body temperature on sperm development.
Yes, so the male reproductive system consists of the following important structures. So first we have the penis. So as shown on your screens right now is only an accessory organ for reproduction and not the reproductive organ itself as most of us think of. It is the organ for copulation and it functions in the transfer of sperm cells from the male to the vagina of the female. So it is composed of erectile tissues and engorgement of the erectile tissue with blood causes the penis to enlarge and become erect or firm in the process called erection.
Yes, Ma'am Vern. So the testis or testicle, as shown earlier, are organs within the scrotum, each about 4 to 5 centimeters long, and are composed of cone-shaped lobules that contain seminiferous tubules in which the sperm cells develop.
Yes, so epididymis or epididymis shown on your screens right now is a tightly coiled series of thread-like tubules that form a comma-shaped structure on the posterior side of the testes. So the sperm cells continue to mature along this tube.
Okay, so from the epididymis, the sperm moves to this tube up to the ampulla of the ductus deferens or the vas deferens. So the wall of this tube is composed of smooth muscles. So the vas deferens shown on your screen emerges from the epididymis epididymis and ascends along the posterior side of the testis to become associated with the blood vessels and nerves that supply the testis.
Yes, so shown on your screens right now, the urethra is a pathway for both urine and the male reproductive fluids, but these do not exit the urethra at the same time. Thus, there is no mixing. The male urethra connects from the urinary bladder to the distal end of the penis. While seminal fluid passes through the urethra, a reflex causes the urinary sphincter muscles to contract tightly to keep urine from passing the urinary bladder through the urethra. So, dili magdungan, Ma'am Chris. So, kahiyon kanin kato kagawsunon na dili magdungan. Yes.
Yes, Ma'am Vern. So, the scrotum shown on your screen right now consists of skin, which serves as covering of the testis or the testicle. So, in cold temperatures, the scrotum becomes firm and wrinkled, reducing the overall size of the scrotum.
Yes, Ma'am Chris. So that's it, grade 10 students. So for your activity is multiple choice, Ma'am Chris.
So they need to
Choose the best answer, the letter of the best answer, then write the chosen letter on the space provided before the number.
Okay, so this time, Ma'am Berna, we're done with our all the learning competencies
Yes.
in science from grade 7 to grade 10. Now it's time for you to take note of your third attendance marker on top of your screen.
Yes.
Yes, Ma'am Vern. So this time, let us express our heartfelt thanks, to all the people behind this program, especially our executive producer, Sir Gas Sepi. Thank you so much, sir. To our production team,
Headed by Sir Alden Antonio and Sir Lay Inayo.
yes, and of course to our junior high school learners who are staying with us and
Yes.
listening with our program. So this has been Ma'am Mary Chris Malalis.
And Ma'am Bernalyn Carpio,
This is
Astral Academy Cyber School. Bye!